What if the buildings of the future could actually heal the planet, all while lowering construction costs? I know, it sounds like a total paradox, doesn't it? We've all kind of been conditioned to think that going green always comes with this massive premium price tag attached. And let's be honest, traditionally, the construction sector accounts for a huge chunk of global waste and energy usage. But in the world of construction materials today, sustainable innovation is proving to be the exact opposite of a burden. It's actually a massive market opportunity. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the SASB standards for construction materials, and we're zeroing right in on product innovation. We're going to dig into the actual data to see exactly how cutting-edge innovation is completely reshaping the industry. We're talking about turning what used to be purely environmental concerns into absolutely powerful business drivers.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today's analysis. We'll start with the trends driving green demand, then look at innovating with recycled inputs, manufacturing with less energy, the sustainable cost advantage, and finally, measuring the market opportunity. Let's jump right into Section 1, Trends Driving Green Demand. This is really the catalyst for change, the big shifts forcing a massive pivot in how construction materials are actually made. So, the push for sustainable building materials is being driven by two absolutely immense forces. First up, we've got evolving consumer trends. People are demanding higher resource efficiency. Buyers want buildings that are cheaper to heat, cool, and maintain. Makes sense, right? Second, we're seeing strict regulatory trends focusing heavily on the health impacts of a building throughout its entire life cycle. The crucial takeaway here is that this isn't just environmental philanthropy. These consumer and regulatory trends are creating very real, very powerful business drivers. Companies aren't just adapting to be nice, they're adapting because the market absolutely demands it. And that brings us to Section 2, Innovating with Recycled Inputs. This is where we rethink the very materials that make up our built environment. Now, what's really interesting here is the stark contrast between traditional extraction and modern closed-loop design. The old way relied heavily on extracting virgin materials. That's a process with massive upstream environmental impacts, from heavy mining right down to transport. But the new way? It completely flips the script. By utilizing secondary or recycled materials instead of virgin ones, think, incorporating fly ash into concrete or using reclaimed wood and recycled steel, companies can drastically reduce those upstream impacts. We're talking about a fundamental shift in the supply chain that stops environmental damage before the manufacturing process even begins. And look, this isn't just some nice theory. Investors are tracking it closely. The SASB standards formally measure product innovation by asking companies to report the percentage of their products that qualify for green certifications, and that's calculated by annual sales revenue. So innovation is quite literally being tracked right there on the income statement. It's serious business. All right, let's move along to Section 3, Manufacturing with Less Energy, because it's not just about what goes into the product, but how those production processes are becoming leaner and greener. We can break this down into three distinct life cycle stages where carbon emissions and energy impacts are being actively reduced. Step 1 is sourcing, basically creating products that simply require less processing from the get-go. Step 2 is manufacturing. Here, we're seeing the introduction of renewable fuels and massive energy efficiency improvements right at the plant level. And finally, Step 3 is usage. The innovation doesn't just stop at the factory door. Products are being designed to reduce energy consumption for the end user. Think about highly improved insulation compared to typical legacy products. But wait, it's not just about carbon and energy. These design breakthroughs also extend into critical water conservation. New product attributes are specifically designed to reduce the amount of water required during manufacturing, during the actual product assembly on the job site, and even during everyday product usage. When you consider the increasing global risk of water scarcity, well, this becomes a massive operational advantage for these companies. Which actually leads us perfectly into Section 4, the Sustainable Cost Advantage. This is where we connect all these environmental wins directly to the bottom line. Consider this exact phrasing from the SASB standard. It says, furthermore, some new products require less energy to produce or use largely recycled inputs, reducing production costs. That right there, that brilliantly illustrates the ultimate win-win framing of modern sustainable construction. If your new product requires less energy to make, your utility bills drop. If you use recycled inputs instead of extracting virgin materials, your supply chain costs often drop too. You're significantly lowering production costs while creating a more environmentally sound product. It's basically ensuring long-term competitiveness in a really tightening market. Plus, producing these materials allows companies to tap into highly lucrative certified markets. They can qualify for globally recognized standards like BREEAM, Green Globes, LEED, and the National Green Building Standard. When a manufacturer's products help a developer earn credits in these really rigorous certification systems, it directly drives up the market demand for those specific materials. It's a huge selling point.
So, how big is this market really? Let's transition to our final section, measuring the market opportunity. We need to look at exactly how this is financially quantified for investors.
The SASB standard uses a very specific metric here, total addressable market, or TAM. By definition, this is the potential revenue if an entity were to capture 100% of the market share for reduced environmental impact products. Think of it as the ultimate ceiling of this business opportunity. It tells us the maximum possible scale if a company were to just completely dominate this new green landscape.
So the crucial point here is that 100% figure. By asking companies to calculate their TAM, the standards are essentially forcing the industry to look up at that ceiling, to look at the absolute massive financial upside available if they fully lean into sustainable innovation. We are talking about capturing an emerging, incredibly lucrative global market here.
And companies really have to put their money where their mouth is now. This metric code you see here requires entities to officially disclose their current market share for products that reduce energy, water, or material impacts. Plus, they're encouraged to project the future growth of this market. This level of transparency is honestly a game changer. It allows everyone to see exactly which companies are successfully capturing this massive transition, and, well, which ones are dangerously lagging behind. Which leaves us with this final thought. As consumer demands for efficiency skyrocket, and as regulatory pressures regarding life cycle health impacts just keep mounting, you have to ask yourself, will companies that fail to innovate even survive the transition to a sustainable built environment? The data we've looked at today strongly suggests that product innovation isn't just a nice-to-have green initiative anymore. No, it's the very foundation of future profitability and survival in the construction materials sector. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helps structure your understanding of where this fascinating industry is heading next.